Cycling for me has never been about the bikes. They've only ever been the prerequisite tool. I do not see just a bike race, I see riders on heroic journeys and warriors doing battle. At one point, cycling was the most popular sport in Europe because newspapers told magnificent tales about epic races and crafted the great champions into legends. But with the advent of television, cycling lost some of its mystique, and that golden age of journalism and narration has perished. So now let us try to return some romance to the beautiful sport. Let us praise and give glory to phenomenal performances to be remembered for decades to come. Let us dwell on the moments that inspire and move us. Let us chronicle the rise and fall of heroes. Let us chart these life-changing journeys, these cycling odysseys. All right, welcome back to another episode of Cycling Odysseys. I'm your host, Patrick Santino. Today, another laid-back episode. We're just running through the races of the week. Intentionally laid back, partially to keep it easier on me, partially because there isn't quite the typical epic feel or grand feel. These really are just they're preseason and all but results. That's the weird thing. They count, but these are preseason races. The wins absolutely count for the sprinters. The wins count for the GC guys too, but lots of them are there just to put in good hard rides or find the legs or whatnot. So, this is more laid back than it would usually be. That's the reasoning behind this. So with that, let's jump in and maybe I'll say something quick things at the end. Early season Smorgasbord number 2. The smorgasbord goes on. Let the sampling continue. On to the Middle East again. The Tour of Oman was once again only available to be viewed in highlights, which is incredibly lame. Even 20 minutes of extended highlights do nothing justice. All suspense is taken away. Little sizing up of the riders can be done by the viewing audience. They really are only good for scenic views and sprint finishes on flat stages. With that said, the Tour of Oman, based in and around the Muscat port city, might be my favorite of the Middle Eastern races for beautiful views. Their mountain climbs might have too wide of roads to be picturesque and only remind of some suburban pocket of America, but at least the climbs are legitimate and their desert mountains are impressive. And within the city of Muscat itself, more culture and local heritage can be seen compared to the glitzy and glamorous skyscrapers of the UAE megacities that seem silver desert versions of Oz's Emerald City above the plain. To be sure, Muscat has and highlighted beautiful architectural achievements and hubs of commerce, but there was more emphasis on beautiful medieval mosques and city walls that finally rival medieval European cathedral and city architecture. So, these tours of Oman and Saudi these past 2 weeks have been refreshing Middle Eastern changes of pace than seeing 100 different skyscrapers all built within the last 20 years as we usually do in the UAE and Qatar. But it is a shame that more of the racing could not be seen. The opening stage was a flat sprint. UAE's Fernando Gaviria had the best leadout, and finally he finished off the job to beat Quickstep's Mark Cavendish and Bike Exchange's Caden Groves. Cav closed pretty well, but Gaviria had enough of a lead to hold him off. This was not the case on stage 2, where again Gaviria's team set him up for success. But this time, Mark Cavendish, the Manx missile, could not be denied. He came from very far back, out of nowhere and like lightning, to take his first victory of the year. Stage 3 finished at the top of a tough 2.5 kilometer climb. I saw only what the highlights showed, and that was enticing, but not a full picture at all. In the end, it was UnoX's Neo-Pro, Anton Charming, that took an excellent victory ahead of Intermarché's Jan Hurt. It was a strange hilly stage 4 that went to a breakaway 1-2 punch combo of a pair of Quickstep wolves. Fausto Masnada took the victory with the help of his teammate Mauro Schmidt's early attack. But stage 5 was the Queen stage, up to the top of a massive climb that is difficult to pronounce but translates to the Green Mountain. This time it was Jan Hurt that tasted victory and blew away the competition. It was an exceptionally excellent result for the smaller Intermarché team. With only a flat stage 6, Jan Hurt would go on to take overall victory a full minute ahead of second place Masnada. And to bookend the week, the final flat stage 6 was won by Fernando Gaviria after another excellent UAE leadout. He was ahead of Caden Groves, and Mark Cavendish was further back, banging his handlebars in frustration at being hung up by Gaviria's leadout man peeling off the front and slowing down in front of him. But that is the frustrating nature of the beast that is sprinting. Before speaking of sprints again, on Saturday in southern Spain was the hilly Vuelta Murcia race that was won by Alessandro Covi of UAE. Yes, he is the rider that lost the Giro Strada stage last year to the already mentioned Mauro Schmid. It was a good showcase of teamwork from the UAE riders. Very late into the race, UAE's American Brandon McNulty was out solo in a good attack that looked as if it might stick. Obviously, it did not though. And as soon as McNulty was back in the fold, Covey shot away to counterattack the reduced group with 5 kilometers to go. Additionally, still in the group for UAE was Matteo Trentin, who was on paper probably the fastest sprinter. Covey's lead was very tight, and it was touch and go if it would be brought back for a sprint. Trentin was actually in an awkward spot because he could not do any sort of lead out, but in the course of his final sprint, he might in the end be the one to swallow up and catch his teammate. But Matteo Trentin, the veteran, and by what I know of him, the good guy, did everything in his power to give Covey the shot to win, and he timed his sprint and sat up perfectly to take only second place down the final straight. It was a fine result for Covey and excellent supporting roles from Trentin and McNulty. Then on Sunday, we came to a classic thorny issue of certain cycling races, a problem that is particularly pronounced in Spain. Spanish organizers seem to have an obsession saying every race is a classic. To be fair, San Sebastian in late July surely is a classic, but Sunday's Classica del Almeria, that is a flatter opportunity for sprinters to get an early season first win, not so much in the classics department. I advise the Spanish organizers to learn about the greatest achievement ESPN ever did. The creation of the ESPN Classic channel, where old vintage games were played over and over, brought back great memories, taught a younger generation, and broke sporting ground in broadcasting, until YouTube rendered it an unnecessary vestigial ESPN organ. Anyways, the Classica del Almeria sprint was won by Intermarché's new big-name signing, Alexander Kristoff. It was great to see him take a win for both the smaller Intermarché team trying to build momentum in a crucial season and for Kristoff himself. For Kristoff has been in the twilight of his career for years now, so every win he takes is sweet to see. Maybe this race is actually a classic this year. And it was good to see him notching the wins early to have sprinting confidence for later. And then came the most audacious classic of the extended weekend on the Spanish Monday. The Spanish organizers had the stones to name their inaugural Spanish Strada race the Classica Jaén. How on earth can an inaugural edition of anything be a classic? Anyways, more importantly, this race was a bid to form a Spanish Strada Bianchi and cash in on the gravel craze. The race had quite a lot going for it, and should it eventually be established as a real classic and go on to hold a similar route to this race should be nicknamed the Race of the Olive Groves. The gravel roads picked out seemed to mostly have been the gravel maintenance roads on the perimeters of olive grove plantations. The scenery was very beautiful. Sometimes row upon row of olive groves can look too manufactured or industrious and become bland to the eye, but this setting worked for such a race as this. Most of the gravel sectors were challengingly loose, and even uphill, some reaching gradients well above 10%. So the gravel seemed to prove the decisive challenge hoped for, but further comments will need to be sought out from the riders who participated. Finally, the finishing town of Ubeda was a picturesque, beautiful medieval town of uniform white brick and a fun finishing steep cobbled climb to the top of the town. All the race lacked this year was very dramatic racing. Astana's Alexei Lutsenko was in a class above the rest and toying with them all before easily stomping his authority to win the race. It was no surprise after hearing of his winning of Posado's gravel race this past fall. Lutsenko finished ahead of Lotto's Tim Wellens, who is always in the hunt for races at the bookends of the season, Intermarché's Loic Vliegen, Bora's Leonard Kamna, and Arkea's Connor Swift with similar Trobro-Lyon success. But Swift could not finish off this day with a win, and he was outdone by an Arkea teammate in France this weekend. As a final thought about the Spanish Strada, I would definitely love to watch it again with a beefed up start list and on a different spot on the calendar. Spitballing aloud, Why not place it on the Sunday, the day after the Saturday San Sebastian, a week after the Tour de France? Top riders will still be on top form, and even double back from the Basque Country overnight. Maybe Strade Bianche could be moved to the August slot a week later, like it was in the COVID edition, and the foundations could be laid for a wealth of August classics in between the Tour and Vuelta. Finally, the last race to report on for this week is the Tour de la Provence in the south of France. Sadly, the cool Madryn/La Viclaire leader's jersey was reduced basically down to black this year. Also, sadly, the race began with a 7-kilometer prologue, which did not hold my attention at all. It should be rule of thumb that small stage races never begin with a TT, because the riders go in some mangled order that does not lead to any sort of dramatic racing. Anything in the world distracted me, as I did not even know who was lining up or soon going off. In the end, Ineos' Filippo Ganna won, and that was by no means a surprise for the TT world champion. The next day was a flat stage 1 where crosswinds raged. This made up for the incoherent prologue. This stage 1 was a very good race. Split started with 80 kilometers still left, and most of the race favorites made it into a select front group that would not see the peloton again for the rest of the stage. The final kilometers were a wild run-in as well. With 7 kilometers to go, Total Energies' Mathieu Bodnar attacked. Behind, the Ineos riders were trying to hold everything together to keep Ganna in the leader's jersey and let their sprinter, Elia Viviani, win his first sprinting opportunity back in with his old team. As the final kilometers ticked down, it was Ganna himself that needed to bring Bodnar back, and behind him, Richard Carapaz could barely hold his wheel. Top Ganna, the massive tank with the speed of an F-16, almost dropped what remained of the group in pursuit of Bodnar, to the point where Ganna did not even know what he should do. But the other opponents left scrambled together to latch back onto Ganna, who had just caught Bodnar out front. By that point, there was only a kilometer or two left to the line, where Ineos' Luke Rowe led out Elia Viviani for that first sprint win he was chasing. The next day, Stage 2 was a hilly affair that ended with a thrilling and strange finale. After handling all of the climbing for the day, most of the riders were still in some sort of reduced peloton, and it was big tank man Filippo Ganna in the race leader's jersey, Quickstep's wiry and springy world champion Julian Alaphilippe the Musketeer, and Cofidis' new signed sprinter Brian Coquard duking it out for the sprint win on a tough uphill drag. Coquard got the best of both of them, as he on paper should have, but it was still a very fine win. The next Stage 3 was the final day in Queen Stage with a summit finish up to Montagne de Loire. The final climb was over 10 kilometers, but nothing happened besides slow shedding of support riders until less than 5 kilometers to go. The pace was slow enough that big boned Filippo Ganna, still in the leader's jersey, was still in the group being whittled down. But Ganna's race-winning dreams were thoroughly dashed as soon as Arkea's Nairo Quintana dropped the hammer and attacked with 4 kilometers to go. The only man who dared go with him was the Musketeer and world champion Julian Alaphilippe. Both sailed away from the group of favorites that proceeded to shatter into 1s and 2s in pursuit of the leading pair. Alaphilippe dared ride with Quintana to win the race that slipped through his fingers last year, but soon the diminutive mountain goat on flying early season form was able to twist the knife on the world champion Musketeer. Because of the prologue TT, Quintana needed to still take back 30 seconds on Alaphilippe to win the race overall. He managed to do that and more. Nairo Quintana took a very fine early season stage race win for Arkea Samsic at the Tour de la Provence for the second time in his career. The first time he did so was in 2020, and less than 1 month later, the world was shut down by coronavirus. Let us hope nothing similar shall happen again. And then, why don't we just leave it short for the night? Thanks for listening, everybody. Vive le cyclisme.